and welcome to episode 45 of the Kicking Back podcast. Today, I'm joined by Ruth Russelson. Hi, Ruth.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show.
That's my pleasure.
I think we're going to talk about some very interesting and important things today.
I hope so.
So, Ruth, for the people at home, do you want to just explain who you are and what it is you do?
Okay, so I'm Ruth Rosselson. I work for Manchester Mind, and I'm fancy title is Resilience Coordinator.
Okay.
But what I actually do is run workshops and courses to help people manage challenges and changes in life. So that might be things like helping with stress management, helping with adjusting to living with long-term conditions, mindfulness courses, sleep, all sorts of different things like that. So they could be just a half-hour, 45-minute workshop helping people breathe to calm down, or an 8-week course of obviously which goes much deeper into different things.
Okay, brilliant. So, how did you find yourself in this sort of line of work?
So I was freelance before working for Manchester Mind. I actually have 2 long-term physical conditions. I've got something called palindromic rheumatism,
Oh,
which
okay.
is
What's that?
a kind of arthritis. It's a little bit like rheumatoid arthritis.
Right.
And I also have something called fibromyalgia. Now, I developed those in my 30s, so quite
Right.
young. And people used to say, "Oh, you're too young for arthritis." I'm like, well, tell my body that. And what I quickly discovered was that there's 2 sides to living with physical pain and discomfort and, those challenges. And, obviously there's the kind of adjusting to the mobility issues, all those kind of things. And there's what happens to you and how you feel about yourself. And the consultants and the doctors, they were all really concerned about kind of giving me medication, giving me a diagnosis. But no one ever asked, how are you? How are you coping?
Yeah.
How are you adjusting to this new circumstances? I used to be quite fit. I mean, I'm quite fit now, but when I developed the condition, there was lots of things I could no longer do.
Right.
And I was living with a lot of pain, really a lot of pain at that time. And I would go to the doctor and said, I'm really not coping with this pain. I need some help. And the doctor said, well, we can't really sort of send you anywhere. We can just help you with painkillers. I said, isn't there some kind of course or something I could do?
Right.
And she said, well, we'll only send you on a course when you've tried all the different painkillers, which didn't seem to help me in that moment.
No.
So I discovered a course run in Manchester by an organisation called Breathworks, which was about living with pain and illness. And that taught mindfulness techniques and meditation. So this was about 14 years ago now. And it basically changed my life. Didn't make the pain go away.
Right.
Although it did help lessen the impact of the pain and help me cope a lot better with it. And it also helped me see the behaviours and the tendencies that I'd got into that would make my pain worse, my situation worse. So around, I don't know at what point in my career, I started to move into trying to help people like myself with the psychological impact of living with long-term conditions, helping improve mood, giving coping skills. I was doing that as a freelancer, and then wonderfully, a job came up at Manchester Mind, running a 6-week course for people living with long-term conditions. So I've been running those courses called Building a Healthy Future for the last 7.5 years for Manchester Mind.
Right, okay.
And then also starting to deliver our mindfulness program, because after many years of mindfulness practice, I knew that it was something I wanted to teach and share with other people.
Brilliant. So, was it Breathworks you said that
Yes.
you went to?
Yeah.
So, what kind of things did they give you to do then, and how did that help you with dealing with the pain?
It's a long time ago now, so it's hard to get myself back into the shoes of someone kind of approaching it completely new. And initially it was incredibly challenging,
Right.
because it was completely new to me. I had never meditated in my life before. I thought it wasn't something for me. I was a person that was on the go all the time, and I was being asked to lie down for 45 minutes and focus on my body. And why would I want to do that when my body's in so much pain? That sounds like an awful thing to do.
Yeah.
So it was a real challenge initially, but gradually I started to notice, well, actually, there are bits of my body that aren't in pain.
Okay.
And when you've got pain, you tend to focus on just the bits that are in pain and maybe hyper focus on them. So that's the only thing you notice. But the body scan practice, which was the first one I was introduced to, allowed me to notice, okay, there's other things going on as well. And oh, that bit feels all right. That's okay. And started to kind of get a little bit of distance from my circumstances. Overall, it also enabled me to stop trying to resist it.
Okay.
So I was really hard on myself about, I'm not coping, I can't do this, this is awful, my life is ruined, all those kind of negative thought spirals. And it allowed me to go, no, this is hard. Yeah, this is hard. Lots of people would find this hard. And just that in itself, again, helped lessen the impact of the situation I was finding myself in. So instead of beating myself up for struggling, I just sometimes just cry.
Yeah.
And that was okay, and that was necessary at the time. You know, if you're in a lot of pain, then it's actually quite normal to go, ow, this hurts, instead of trying to pretend it's not happening.
Yeah.
So those were my kind of first introductions to the meditation practices. And of course, like many people, I did a course and I was like, this is great, this is it, this is going to change my life. And then I didn't really practice. And then I kind of stopped. And
Right.
the trouble with mindfulness and meditation is it really does work. It can make a huge, huge difference, but only as long as you do it.
Yeah. That's
So
it.
it's just like going to the gym. You go to the gym, you build up cardio fitness, you build up your muscles, and you think, great, that's it, I'm fit. And then you stop. And then the next time you try and walk up a hill, you're really out of breath. And you go, hang on a minute. I went to the gym 6 months ago. So I actually did another course, a mindfulness for stress course. And after that, I really recognized the value of making time every day.
Yeah.
And if not every day, then most days to have a formal meditation practice. And I think it's been around 8 to 10 years that I've had a daily practice.
Amazing.
And
Right.
as I say, I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
There are days where I don't fit it in, or I do a shorter practice, or sometimes I forget. But largely, I practice more days than I don't practice.
That's great. I try and do it every day as well. I try and
Mm.
build it into my morning routine. And there's that sometimes, like you say, like life gets a bit busy and you miss it for a few days. And I do notice that there's a physical difference just in
Mm.
terms of my like cognitive ability and just sort of how I am with people.
Mm.
It's an amazing practice. So when you're meditating, what sort of things are you focusing on? What kind of meditations
Okay,
are you
so
doing?
when I lead meditations, I guide people through it. And obviously,
Okay.
when you're starting to practice, it's really helpful to have a voice to remind you what you're supposed to be doing, to
Mm.
remind you to bring your mind back when it wanders, which it will. Um, Given that I've been meditating for quite a long time now, I don't need a voice.
Yeah.
So I sit in silence, and I don't always do the same thing every day. So
Okay.
sometimes I'll just focus on my breath, either kind of just noticing the sensations inside the tip of my nose. That can be a nice one to do in the morning. When there's a lot going on, like mentally and around me,
Mm.
very busy week, that's kind of a nice practice to help me get focused, and sort of train the mind in coming back to the present moment. But that's not the only way that I practice. So sometimes I've had a quite challenging year. I've had some family illness, I've had a death.
Mm.
And sometimes that practice is really helpful because it's very simple. But sometimes you notice stress within the body, or you notice things going on emotionally, and I sit with that.
Okay.
And sometimes that can be quite challenging, obviously, sitting with some discomfort and some difficult emotions. But it's a really good way of processing because it
Mm.
allows you to feel what's actually here rather than pretending it's not happening.
Yeah.
And other days, I've got a school run outside my house. So other days, I'll meditate on the sound of the school run.
Yeah. Okay.
So instead of seeing that as a distraction from my practice, oh, those kids, they're so annoying. Why are they coming outside my window screaming? I'll just notice the sounds, not really get too bothered by them, just include that in my practice.
Mm.
And then sometimes I do some compassion practices. So I think human beings are really hard on ourselves. We're really good at beating ourselves up. And, I'm not the only person I know that can do that. So I will focus on either a loved one, sending them good wishes, and sending myself good wishes. And that's kind of a nice practice to do, again, when there's a lot of stress or when there's some conflict, or just when you feel you're being a bit hard on yourself.
Okay. Compassion practices. That's
Yeah,
not something I've tried before.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it's interesting you saying something about the school run thing, because I had it a few well, it was a couple of months ago now. There's these guys like washing a car outside my house, and they were absolutely blasting like tunes and stuff. It was like the initial 5 minutes, like, why are you doing that? I can't be peaceful, and you know,
Mm.
and then I just like focused in on it and just tried to just, like you said, like just sit with it and enjoy it, and it was kind of just, I don't know, it's an interesting practice to sort of take your focus onto other places. Like I've been doing a lot of like sensation
Mm-hmm.
based stuff to sort of, I don't know if this is a thing, because I don't do guided meditation anymore. I just do it
Mm-hmm.
of
Yeah.
my own volition,
Great.
just
Yeah.
like feeling sensation in the hands
Yeah.
and things
Yeah.
like that. And it's just yeah, it's funny that it's not just, I think a lot of people think it's just sitting there and trying not to think about anything,
But-
but
And it really isn't,
it's
is
a
it?
lot more than that,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think a lot of people have the perception that they can't meditate because when they've tried, their mind has wandered. But actually, you know, you wouldn't go to the gym and weight lift without weights, would you?
Yeah.
You know, you wouldn't really do anything by that. And that's the same with meditation. We're going to think, it's going to take us away from what's going on. We notice it and we come back. And certainly being with the sensations in our body, it's a great way of being present. Bringing like some curiosity to that. Oh, what's that feel like? What's that like? And kind of noticing different bits of the body. So in doing that, you're giving your mind something else to focus on. So it
Yeah.
might be a bit quieter. But I think a lot of people, and myself included when I started, thought it was just about relaxing. And, you know, I can't relax, I'm in pain. But actually, it's more about learning to be with things as they are in the moment, which can itself, as a byproduct, be quite relaxing rather than resisting what's going on in the moment. So sometimes what's going on in the moment is the school run, and sometimes what's going on in the moment is pain, and sometimes what's going on in the moment is stress and anxiety and kind of feeling that within the body. So mindfulness meditation allows us to be with things as they are, which isn't always easy, but is generally, you know, it spills out into our everyday life. It's not, for me, very much so. It's not, there's this meditation thing over there.
Yeah.
And then there's the rest of my life where I just carry on and, you know, and behave as, you know, like I used to 20 years ago. It's not like that. It really does spill over into your relationships, into your work. As you say, you notice yourself when you don't practice how you are when you work or how you are with other people.
Yeah.
And my ex-partner always used to notice before I did when I hadn't practiced, because I wouldn't
Okay.
be as patient.
Yeah.
I might be
yeah.
a little bit more snappy. So yeah, it's very much part of everyday life, and you know, hopefully is for the people that I teach as well. Starts to become that way.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us a bit more about what you do at Manchester Mind. So how long have you been with Manchester Mind?
So I've been at
now?
Manchester Mind 7.5 years, and I was
Okay.
initially employed to run the 6-week course for people with long-term conditions. It's not a mindfulness course, although it includes, because I teach it, aspects of mindfulness.
Right.
But it also includes elements from cognitive behavioural therapy, from positive psychology. And for a lot of people, they feel really isolated if they're living with chronic pain or long-term conditions. So it's so important for them to meet other people in similar situations, even if their conditions might be different. So it's
Yeah.
not about their physical health, but it's about their emotional health and helping them with that side of life. So I still run that. And
Amazing.
that's a free course for people. And I think the youngest person I have had on that course is 18, a young woman with epilepsy some time ago. And the oldest person was, I think, 90 something.
Oh,
So,
wow,
you know, it's
right,
never too
okay.
late. It's
Yeah,
never too
yeah.
late. Our brains can change at any time. We can start to make positive inroads into habits. So that's one of the things I do. And I run the 8-week mindfulness for stress course and a 6-week introduction to mindfulness course, and a mindfulness for menopause course, because again, I started to notice that there wasn't a lot of support, especially for psychological support for women going through perimenopause and menopause. So that's a kind of another new course that we run at Manchester Mind. And then I do some of our commercial training. So companies kind of want training to help employee well-being. So
Right.
that's sort of little short workshops to help with sleep or stress management, those kind of things, 5 ways to well-being. So those are little one-off workshops. So what that means for me is that my work week can be really varied.
Yeah, it sounds
I can, you know, I might be running 2 courses at one time and then have the odd workshop, or I might be doing workshop development. So at the moment, I'm putting together I think it's a 60-minute workshop on seasonal affective disorder and kind of winter
Okay.
blues. So it can be quite creative at times. And then obviously there's all the admin, all the backroom stuff to all these
Yeah.
courses that takes up a lot of time.
Right. So do you come up with the courses yourself, or is it part of sort of the whole mind ethos?
Well,
How's it
Building a
work?
Healthy Future was a course that was created by another local mind in Oxford, and it was
Right.
delivered in Birmingham and Manchester. Since that pilot finished, I've adapted and changed the course
Right.
as time has gone on, sometimes as a result of people's feedback,
Mm.
and sometimes because information changes. You can see what helps people and what doesn't. The Mindfulness for Stress course is a kind of structured course that's based on a course that was run by Salford Mind,
Mm.
but again I've kind of adjusted and tweaked it. The menopause course and some of the workshops, sometimes I just create those myself. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Brilliant. And for well, I guess, but for someone that doesn't know what mind is, how would you describe what it is that you guys do?
So, excuse me.
It's okay.
So National Mind is a charity that I'm sure many people have heard of.
Mm.
It's a really great organisation to speak for mental health and stand up for mental health. But then around the country, you've got local minds. So Manchester Mind is a local mind. It delivers its own services. We've got our own board of trustees. We've got our own set of values and beliefs,
Okay.
and we've got our own fund, so we have to fundraise for ourselves. We don't get any money from National Mind at all. Mostly we work with people in Manchester because we're Manchester Mind.
Yeah.
So the services offered by local minds are very much tailored to the population that they're working with. So what we offer at Manchester Mind might be very different to what someone might offer in Bath or Somerset or more rural places. So we're able to really tailor our services to see what people need and meet those needs.
Okay. And what are the things that you've picked up on and noticed about in Manchester? You know, what are you tailoring towards?
Well, obviously, poverty and inequality
Mm.
really affects people's mental health.
Yeah.
So Manchester Mind really does recognise that mental health and mental ill health doesn't happen in a silo. Yeah, it is very much related to people's life circumstances. So during lockdown, for example, we were delivering free meals to people because of food poverty,
Yeah.
making sure that kids were being fed. So, there was a lot of that in the news. We have an advice arm. It's very, very popular. We've got a long waiting list now because people often really do need help and support with benefits and claiming what is actually owed to them.
Right.
That's one of the services that we offer. And what's really important is to help people feel less isolated. So some of our services are really geared towards that, such as my course. We've also got peer support, which are groups that are run by the people themselves,
Right.
and all about kind of helping people feel connected and supported. So it's a whole different set of services, really kind of trying to help people feel better, and for us to support them in feeling better. We don't actually offer counselling services, which is a lot of people seem surprised about.
Right.
But we do have a listening ear. So when, especially again during the lockdowns, some people were extremely isolated, didn't see anyone, didn't speak to anyone week to week. And the listening service at least provided a little bit of space for them to talk to someone and feel heard.
Okay. I was going to actually ask you about that. Were there any things that you picked up on, like as a consequence of the pandemic, and it was uh, a need for? Did you notice a need for anything, or was there a shift in sort of the needs that people had as an effect of that?
Well, I can only talk from my own observations rather
Sure.
than the organisations. I mean, what I really noticed is anxiety. Anxiety,
Right.
if for some people who lived with anxiety, that might have gone down because they're used to living with anxiety. Whereas for other people, their anxiety levels might have gone up quite a bit,
Right.
but not necessarily with the coping strategies to be able to manage it. I don't think we get taught how to manage anxiety and stress.
No.
It's a life skill, but
Yeah.
it's not a skill that, and some of the techniques can be really straightforward and simple. So in the very early days, I was doing a lot of just little Zoom drop-ins, helping people calm down, helping manage anxiety, or doing meditations for me. So I think the kind of anxiety and the isolation of what I've noticed. And as I said, I mean, I do have some people on, because my courses are still running on Zoom, who I know, barely leave the house,
Right.
and don't really see people from week to week. And as you can imagine, that's really hard and takes its toll on the mental health.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess, well, I've also noticed from like my personal experiences, it does seem like people are talking more about mental health as a consequence of that, which I think is great. Is well, if I go back when's before COVID now? Like 2 years.
Couple of years now, yeah.
Like if I think about that, it's like I don't think I'd ever really have a conversation about mental health with anyone. And then now it's, I mean, obviously it became more prevalent in my life because I was trying to like, deal with things, and I had a bit of like a turnaround and realization of things. So obviously it became more prevalent then, but I'm having so many more conversations with people that I've known for years, and we've never talked about this stuff before, and then it does seem to get brought up more. I don't know if have you picked up on that as well?
I do think so. I mean, it's difficult to know because obviously I work for Manchester Mind, and
Of
it's
course,
something that we
yeah.
talk about, and I think a lot of my friends as well would talk. But I think when I first started running Building a Healthy Future courses and would talk to people who might want to take part in the course, there would be a lot of people who wouldn't like to admit that they were struggling,
Right.
or I'd speak to someone and say, well, I don't have mental health, as if it was some kind of affliction or some kind of judgment on them. But we've all got mental health, and it varies across our lives, sometimes from day to day in terms of how well we feel. So I think there's more of a recognition that our mental health is going to fluctuate, and sometimes we need extra support.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been following you guys for a while, and I think the services that you provide really are great. If someone wanted to get in contact or have a look at some of the things that you offer, where would people go?
So our website's quite simple. It's manchestermind.org.
Okay.
So our different services are on there. We also have children's and young people services for young people under 25, and that does include some counselling services as well.
Okay.
So you can find out what we do and if there's anything that you want to kind of follow. But if you're just looking for a little bit of help or some advice in terms of what you can do for yourself, we've got our wellbeing hub,
Is that what
which
we've got
is up there,
here?
self-care and well-being.
Okay.
So specific pages around different topics. So we've got something last week was Stress Awareness Day. So we've got something on burnout. I think it's Anti-Bullying Week this week. So we've got something up on that. And there'll be hopefully some useful tips and advice, as well as some kind of background information. I've just put something together on seasonal affective disorder, which should go up, well, at least sometime in the winter. I don't know the time scale. Hopefully in time for people. So that can be a resource for people who aren't even in Manchester to come and see.
Okay.
Maybe there's things that they can do for themselves as well.
Okay, brilliant. Well, I think let's go to some music now, and then we'll come back and we'll maybe talk about some mindfulness techniques and things like that.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Thank
cool.
you.
Okay, so we'll be chatting with Ruth again shortly after some live music. Today we had the wonderful Neota in the studio. I hope you enjoy what they've got to play, and then we'll be back in a little bit just to talk about a bit more mindfulness and things like that. So we'll see you shortly.
Hey, we're Neota, and we're going to play Transit for you.
The next one we shall attempt is called Restore. Hey, gonna check this one in. This one's called Cubes.
You can find us on all the social medias, and it's at Neota Music. Facebook, Instagram's the best one. Get us on Instagram.
Sweet. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome back to episode 45 of the Kicking Back podcast. You just heard some delightful music from our musical guest today, Neota. You enjoy that, Ruth?
Yep.
It was good, wasn't it? So we're going to be talking a little bit more, about some mindfulness practices and some elements that we can bring into our daily lives. Obviously, Ruth, a lot of our audience is sort of musicians, creatives, that sort of thing. So I guess what I wanted to ask you about was like things that people can do in their sort of daily lives that could help them. But first, I would like to define what mindfulness is, because I realise we've been talking about it a lot, and obviously if someone's new to this concept, it probably means a whole lot of nothing to them.
Yeah. And I think, it's a word that's just used so often, but not always defined. So mindfulness is just about paying attention on purpose.
Okay, right.
So if you think about it, are you here? How much are you here? Are you here 20%? Are you here 50%? You're here 100%.
Right.
Mindfulness is about attempting to be here 100%, as much as we can, which obviously doesn't happen for prolonged periods of time, because our minds like to wander, our minds like to judge, we like to daydream, all sorts of different things. So being present on purpose. And it's about paying attention. So noticing our thoughts, noticing our physical sensations, noticing our emotions, just paying attention to the present moment and being with things as they are without trying to change them. So if you might think about sitting in a traffic jam. So I know you've driven here. I presume at some point you might have kind of come across some lines of traffic and maybe you wished you were still moving while you were not moving. Mindfulness is about being with the not moving and being okay with it, with the not moving. So if you're in a traffic jam, you might start to get a little bit anxious, a bit frustrated, a bit angry. You might start being really sweary with the other drivers. Oh, God, why didn't I leave earlier? What's wrong with me? I haven't left enough time. I'm going to be late now.
Yeah.
All these sorts of things going through the mind. If we can let go of that and actually just be with things as they are, well, what are things as they are when you're in a traffic jam? What does it feel like actually?
Well, it just feels like we're just sat in a car, really. We're not really doing much. Quite relaxed.
Yeah,
really, isn't it?
You're just sat in a car. So if you take out all the thinking, all the judgments, all the resentment, the frustration, well, you're just left with sensations of being sat down in the car. You might, if you're driving, you might notice the feel of the steering wheel on your hands. Maybe you put some music on. You notice the sounds of the radio. What it feels like to sit down. So what do you notice sitting down? What do you feel?
Well, you feel like there's the nice vibrations. You can hear the sounds of things outside the car.
Yeah, and that is mindfulness, being with things as they are in the moment without getting caught up into the stories, into the kind of thoughts about it, the resentments, just being with things as they are. So it's more about coming back into the body rather than get carried away. And human beings are great because we can do loads of things at the same time. Do you ever kind of, eat your tea while you're watching TV and texting someone at the same time?
Yes, I'm guilty of doing that from time to time.
Yeah, and then when you're doing that, do you really notice your food?
No, I'm also really bad. Like I've been told this by pretty much everyone that I know, that I'm like the quickest eater that anyone's ever seen, and I'm not even thinking about it sometimes. It's just an automatic shoveling action going on. Yeah.
So mindfulness is about coming out of that automatic, we call it automatic autopilot, doing one thing at a time and giving it your attention. Because, well, multitasking is great because we don't want to think about the individual components of driving, do we? We want to do some of that on autopilot.
Yeah.
But really, we can't effectively do lots of things at the same time. So sort of think about when you're operating in autopilot, what might be the problems of that, do you think, just in everyday life?
Well, I guess for me, I notice that you're not putting 100% into something, so you're not necessarily doing something as well as you could do. At least from my personal experience.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I feel like I'm at school and someone's asking me a
there's no,
question.
it's
I'm
not, it's just how it affects you when
yeah.
and if you sort of think about your relationships, if you're having a conversation with someone, but you kind of thinking about the next thing that you have to do, how does that impact on your conversation?
Oh, I mean, like before I did mindfulness stuff and we're doing the podcast and what have you, I'd constantly be thinking like, right, what's the next question that I need to ask and all this stuff. And whilst I was doing that, I'm not even paying attention to what they're saying.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
I'm missing the conversation. They finish what they're saying, and I'm like, oh fuck, right? I don't know what
exactly. And you might not pick up on something that was really important that you might want to ask more questions about
Yeah.
if you were kind of drifting off and thinking about the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it can really help you, help you in your relationships when you're fully present.
Yeah.
But also while being present with the fun stuff. If maybe you're a musician. If you're at a gig and you're watching the gig and you're watching the band, but you start to drift off into, I've got to do that thing for work, and then there's the podcast thing. And how does that affect your enjoyment of the gig, do you think?
Oh, it definitely like just takes me away from the whole. I mean, the excitement of live music is the immediacy of it, isn't it? And it's like when you're really attentive towards it and something happens, it's much more. I find it way more emotive. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can feel it.
Yeah. Does it come naturally to you to be 100% present?
No, I do have to work at it. Yeah, I mean, I spent 26 years of my life not being like that. So I think, now that I practice it more, there are moments of just, I catch myself more and bring myself back into the present. But, there are definitely days where it just, I'm just in a tunnel vision thing, and then it just takes one tiny little thing to like snap me out of it. But
yeah. So
it doesn't come naturally.
It takes practice, and I think you're not alone. I'm the same, and most people I know are the same. Being present isn't something that is very easy, because we spend so much time in the future. What hasn't happened yet? What I need to do? I've got to do this later. I'm thinking about, I've got to cycle home. Which route will I take? Do I want to? Well, I'm not here with you while I'm thinking about cycling home, but that hasn't happened yet. That's the future. That's not real yet.
Yeah.
Or you might spend a lot of time in the past, what's happened, what you did, what you said. And all of those things take us out of the present moment. And that's normal and natural and human. It's human to spend all that time in the places that aren't real. So we need to practice.
Yeah.
You can make a deliberate decision. I'm going to be more mindful. But you may kind of soon find that it's not that easy. And that's where meditation comes in. Meditation is the training. Meditation is the space that we put aside to learn to be more present. So mindful meditation is a formal practice where you set aside some time, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, to focus on one thing or as much as you can. And of course the mind is going to wander. Of course it will, because that's what minds do. But you notice, there's that thing, there's planning. Okay, coming back to the body, coming back to the breath. And you do that many, 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 many times. And it's important to let go of kind of expectations, the idea that I should feel relaxed and all zen and beautiful. Well, it doesn't always work like that.
No.
So letting go of that idea makes it a lot easier. And letting go of a judgment. We can judge ourselves for having a busy mind, but we're just judging ourselves for being human. So if we can let go of that and go, that's what minds do. That's okay. Coming back. And it's the formal practice that allows us to be more mindful in everyday life, which means that the gigs you go to are going to be more enjoyable, conversations that you have are going to be rich, and that you've got the resources to deal with the challenges. So it's not just about kind of dealing with stress and difficulties and challenges, is also about getting more from life, being able to enjoy it when you're in it, rather than watching the sunset and then thinking, okay, right, I'm going to go and have my tea, and just missing it all.
So, right, for someone that has never meditated before, what are the sort of steps? How would you guide or give someone the information to sort of start this journey?
Well, I would say you've got a cup of tea there, haven't you?
I do have a cup of tea.
Is it cool enough to drink?
Let me just check. It is indeed.
Okay, so a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or a piece of chocolate, that's a really good way to start, because that's something that we do every day. And then,
Okay.
as you've said yourself, actually, sometimes you do that on autopilot, don't even notice it. So first of all, I'd just kind of invite you to hold the mug. What does that feel like? What do you notice?
Oh, it's delightfully warm on my hands.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
nice, very comforting to sort of hold it.
So you've got
And,
the feel of the mug, the kind of hardness of it, but the warmth of it at the same time. So you're
yeah.
noticing that in your fingers.
Yeah, and there's
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
texture of the mug as well, and the sort of the pattern and
Yeah,
the design.
yeah.
It's quite nice to sort of.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that's good. So that's using the kind of sense of touch, bringing yourself into, what's going on now with the mug and my hands. What does it smell like?
It smells right. It smells like oats. It's got oat
So
milk
you've got
in
oat milk.
it,
Okay.
which
Yeah.
is a nice smell,
Yeah.
and it's obviously smells like Yorkshire tea.
Mm.
Because I'm that much of a tea freak, I can smell the difference. So
Okay.
it's got to be Yorkshire tea.
So you can tell from the smell what the tea is.
Yes.
What happens in the body as you just inhale it? What do you notice?
With like an intentional sniff,
Yeah.
it's kind of like I'm going to say a moment of clarity.
Mm.
I mean, just like there's a clear, just sort of none of this bubbling in my head. It's just like I'm just noticing that
Yeah.
the sensation of smelling and the actual smell itself.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're kind of occupied with the
With that,
the sensation of smell and
Mm.
what you notice with that. Okay. So we can't really listen to the mug.
We're
Also,
gonna
we've
start
got
this with, like-
headphones on.
yeah, we're gonna start doing some ASMR
Yeah.
weirdness in here.
But maybe it's time to just kind of drink the tea and just see what you notice, focusing on the sensations in the mouth of the liquid, noticing the taste of it. How
Oh, that's a good cup of tea. That's a good cup of tea.
Yeah.
Tastes very oaty,
Yeah.
so you can feel it as it's coming down, sort of the opening of the throat. It's quite
Yeah,
a nice warm
yeah.
sensation coming down my chest. It comes in and sort of slides away
Yeah.
nicely.
Yeah. And do you notice an urge to kind of have the next sip immediately, or are you allowing yourself to savor that?
I do kind of want to have more, but I'm aware that we're having a conversation.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll find an
Yeah.
appropriate time
And
to
how
have
do you
more.
know that you want more?
My mind is kind of telling me
Okay.
in a way,
Yeah.
in a way,
All
I
right.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want another one. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you feel anything in the body with that?
Um,
And you might. There's not necessarily a right answer. Just curious.
I don't think so. I think it's just my mind saying, because I think I have an association with tea being comforting
Right.
or something.
Okay.
So it's
Yeah.
just like a nice little pit stop
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
comfort. Yeah.
So very simple little practice that
Mm.
anyone can do at any time. And the brilliant thing about that is you can do that many times a day. So you've got an opportunity to bring some mindfulness, maybe only into the first or the second sip of your cup of tea or coffee.
Right.
You might start with a sense of sight by, looking at it and kind of anticipating it as well. But it's interesting. So you notice the thoughts about, I'd really want another sip,
Yeah.
but you didn't give in to them.
No.
You didn't just take that as a command and
No.
act on that immediately.
I think because we're in the space that we're in right now,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
very consciously don't listen to what's going on in my head
yeah.
because I'm
yeah.
trying to be as attentive as I can be
Yeah,
towards
yeah.
what you're saying. So when I've kind of got a bit of a practice now when I'm in the space, I don't listen to what's going on here. It's just
Yeah, but you notice it.
I do
You
notice
do
it.
notice
I
it.
do
So,
pick up on
so
it.
that kind of is the start of being able to notice thoughts, but not acting on them as if they're commands, not acting as if they are the absolute truth. And that's really such an important element of mindfulness and mindful meditation, is being able to see our thoughts without getting so emotionally involved and carried away with them. And that enables us to act more wisely and more kindly in our
Yeah.
daily life. So although that thought said, another sip now, you're able to say, oh, that's just a thought. That's not
Yeah.
a command. I don't have to act on it.
Mm.
So that's good observation that you had that thought there. So little mindful eating practice. you might think of it as a meditation. You might just think of it as kind of bringing mindfulness into an everyday activity. It's a really good place to start.
Okay.
You know, kind of informal practice, and you can do the same kind of thing with everyday activities like washing your hands, or you know, if people are still using that gel stuff, you know,
Oh yeah.
you know, you could notice the smell of it, put it on your hands, kind of notice the sensations. I think washing hands, you know, we've been doing a lot more of that since COVID, but that can be a really nice practice. It's almost like a massage, some self-care, maybe noticing the smell of the soap, you know, how it feels between not having it on your hands and then lathering it up. So bringing awareness rather than thinking about. And, you know, those are little ways of starting to train the brain to be here rather than washing your hands and thinking about the state of the world and COVID and all of that sort of thing.
And is for people that want it, so let's say they try these methods, are there resources for them that you'd recommend for them to go and check out if they wanted to get into doing some meditation? Or
So
things
there's,
like
I
that?
mean, Manchester Mind, we had a mindful march. So 30 days of mindfulness. I think it's still up on the website. I'm not sure of the area, but if you go into our mindfulness element, and that's like little things that you can do each day about bringing mindfulness. And some of those are linked to little guided practices. So we've got a kind of pre-breakfast pause. So it's
Okay.
not always easy to remember to be mindful with your breakfast, but if you take a pause beforehand, you might be. And a little listening meditation, which is just a couple of minutes, allowing you to focus on sounds. So those are kind of pre-recorded on a SoundCloud page with sort of a few different guided practices.
Okay.
There's loads of apps. I mean, there's loads and loads of apps. There's millions of books. There's loads of audio books. You can fill your library. You can fill your phone with apps, but you know what? That's not going to make any difference.
Right.
The difference is going to come with practicing. So just like learning a language or learning an instrument.
Yeah.
So what instrument do you play?
So I studied playing bass guitar.
Okay. So if you read about the bass guitar and the different
Yes.
strings and the different frets and
Mhm.
how to tune the guitar and had all the books about bass and bass techniques, but never picked up a bass guitar, what do you think that would be like?
I wouldn't get very far, I don't think.
You wouldn't get very far.
No.
Okay. So what about if you picked up the bass guitar, tried it a little bit, and then were like, I'm not very good at this, and then gave up?
I mean, I've done that with other instruments.
You have? Okay,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely done that before.
Yeah,
without
yeah.
Any knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long have you been playing the bass?
Ooh. 15 years?
Okay.
Yeah. I
And you
think.
practice?
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
I
Okay.
did. I
Yeah,
used to practice a lot.
Yeah,
I did.
yeah.
Yes.
And mindfulness meditation is exactly the same as learning an instrument, learning a language. You need to practice. You need to put time aside
Yeah.
and practice. I used to hate that word because I played the piano and my dad was really, have you practiced today? Yes. I haven't practiced at all. But as an adult, I see the value of that discipline,
Yeah,
of
of
setting the
course.
time aside. And I can now, you know, not quite as well because I don't practice every day, but I can now play the pieces that I used to play because I'd practiced them and learnt them and integrated them. And I think meditation is exactly the same. It's something that needs to be part of our life, but we need to practice and kind of be okay with that. So yes, there are apps, yes, there are books, but the best way to learn is to do. Well, I sound a bit like Yoda now, but
It's to do. I mean, it's funny that I've noticed. I mean, and the more that I talk to people about, is that thing of like trying to find what works for you as well. Because
yeah,
like
yeah.
you know, the kind of meditation that I do might not necessarily suit someone with a different
absolutely.
mindset and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So I think there is a lot of trial and error with this sort of stuff. Because I tried a guided meditations, and I found it really distracting actually to have some. It felt like someone kept like interrupting a sort of
Yeah.
a flow and stuff. And I tried a few different things, and then eventually it was just like, right, I'll just try it on my own and just notice things as they're coming, and that worked for me.
Yeah, yeah,
But there is a lot of going back and forth. At
Yeah.
least it was for me anyway.
yeah. I mean, as far as apps goes, Insight Timer has lots and lots of different guided.
Okay.
So there's loads of because need to like the voice
This is true.
and the
This
style.
Is true. Yes.
So I think Insight Timer is quite a good app, because there's a lot of free content as well. And you also have the ability to just have a timer. So that's what I use. Would you like a pen?
Yes, I would. Thank you for noticing.
Yeah.
Insight Timer.
Insight Timer. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have a look at that. Oh, don't tell me that. Okay, this one's working.
Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
And what you're describing in terms of your practice
Thank
is finding an anchor that works for you. So
Yeah.
we use the term anchor. So that's something to rest the attention onto, and also something concrete to bring it back to.
Okay.
So some people use the breath as an anchor. Some
Mm.
people use the body as an anchor. You could use sounds as the anchor. So sort of finding some way of giving yourself something to focus on, get interested on,
Yeah.
get curious about,
Mm.
and learning to sit with it. And how long do you practice for generally?
So I try and do every morning.
Mhm.
I normally do between 25 minutes to 45
Okay.
minutes. Normally go up, do some exercise,
Mhm.
have a shower, then I do mine. That's like the last thing of my morning routine before my day
Right.
starts.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine is similar, although I meditate after breakfast because I quickly learned I would spend my whole meditation thinking about breakfast. So I always do it after breakfast.
Right,
So
okay.
the first time you sat, what was it like sitting for an extended period of time, or practicing for an extended period of time? Was it a challenge?
Oh yeah, I was very impatient
Mm,
and always like thinking about the clock. I was like, oh, I wonder if there's like 5 minutes left now, or like feels like I've been doing this for 20 minutes. And yeah, it was a bit of a mess, but there was sort of, and it always happens. It's normally about 3/4 of the way through the time. There's like a moment of kind of stillness, and then feeling relaxed, and the thoughts sort of start to subside a little bit, and there's a space. And I'm like, okay. So I remember that from my first practice. I think the first one I did was like 15 minutes, and I remember it was like in the last few minutes, it was just like, it was only brief, like, 15, like 20 seconds of sort of stillness. And then from that, I did feel more relaxed at the end of it. So it kind of made me curious to try it more like that. But
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So our attention is a muscle like anything else, and needs, do need to recognize that it might not be that easy the
Yeah.
first time to sit for 20 minutes, but it does get easier to be
Yeah.
able to kind of withstand those sense of maybe frustration or impatience or discomfort, and really important to notice those and push past them in a way, not push past them, but just kind of kind of ride the wave of them. Because if we get up every time the mind goes, oh, I've got something better to do, you never get to the point where you've obviously been able to get to. So, and that also increases our stress tolerance if we can sit with a little bit of impatience, sit with a little bit of discomfort, and gives you kind of more resources and more resilience. So yeah, so I'm really interested then, how has your practice impacted your kind of creativity or your playing? Do you think it has at all?
I think, I mean, in terms of, so outside of this, I do filming. That's my main work. But I have noticed the space that I enter when I'm present, when I'm meditating, is the same space where, let's say, for example, I'm playing in a band and there's a moment of connectivity and everyone's enjoying it, and there's a sort of pure joy. Something's happening. It's kind of hard to describe. I realize that the space is the same in terms of like why it happens on stage and stuff is when everyone is present and everyone is in that moment. There's a feeling of connectivity.
Yeah.
And I realized this because it would happen every, like when I was younger, like it's jam nights, and it would just happen every now and again. There's like this feeling, I was like, that was amazing. Wow, what was that? And I was like, never really understood what it was. I thought it was just happens every now and then. Do you know what I mean? Just, everyone hits a vibe or whatever. But then starting doing the practice, I realized it's like, it's nothing special. It's not like a miracle thing that's happened. It's just everyone is present.
Yeah,
Everyone's
yeah.
attentive to that moment, and when that happens, it's sort of like the floodgates open.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think trying to get that out of people has definitely helped, just in terms of like my playing and stuff. But then coming back to the podcast, I've noticed a visible difference when I started meditating, and then bringing that presence into talking to people like yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The people just opened up. Like, people will just. I'm not a particularly talkative person. I'm not. Like, outside of this, if you come talking to me in a bar, you're probably not going to get that much out of me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But going into it and being more present with people in the podcast, not by even saying anything differently or acting differently, just like purely giving their attention, people opened up, and just I got so much more out of them just from being actually with them.
Yeah, yeah.
There's like I don't know, there's kind of seems like there's some sort of magic or voodoo around it, in terms of like people being responding to it.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
But absolutely, when you give people attention, it feels good. It's
Yeah.
nice. So people are bound to be more kind of open and able to be with you, answer questions, than if they feel that, you're not listening. What's that feel like? It's not very nice, is it?
Yeah.
So yeah, that sounds really good.
Yeah.
I wanted to come back to the kind of musician and creativity thing. So
Yeah.
this is before I came to meditation, and I did used to jam with a friend. We used to do some folk music. I used to play the flute.
Okay.
And I wasn't very good. And one of the reasons I wasn't very good was because of what was going on up here,
Okay.
rather
yeah.
than my ability to play as a musician. Because I just kept second guessing myself. I kept thinking, oh, is this right? What should I do? Should I do
Yeah.
that? Oh, he's just done that. Now, well, if you're thinking all of that, you can't really flow with your playing, can you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, I'd get into a little bit of flow and it would sound really good. And then the thought would come up, it's like, oh, shit, I just made a mistake. Oh, God, what's he going to think about? He's going to think I'm really rubbish. And there's all that judging that comes in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would love to have had my practice while I was still playing and jamming, because I think it would have been a completely different kettle of fish.
Yeah. Of
So if you
course.
can let go of judgment, and if you can let go of criticism, and if you can approach something as if it's for the first time, which are all kind of some of the underlying foundations of mindful meditation, well, that's going to make a huge difference to your playing
Yeah.
and to your
definitely.
creativity. So, I'd come and I play with this friend. He is still a musician. He's a professional. I wasn't. But I'd have that. Well, I'm not as good as him, or last time we did that, it wasn't. So I never came with it fresh.
Right. Okay.
And I think practice enables you to have that attitude and kindness and softness and gentleness with yourself, which means it's okay to make mistakes, and you just continue on. And in fact, Frankie Armstrong, who is a singer who I grew up around, you should say there's no wrong notes, there's just harmonies.
Yeah. It's
And
true.
just
Yeah.
to have that attitude, and we can cultivate those attitudes through meditation practice, and
Yeah.
I think that gives people more freedom.
Mm.
And then if you're a musician you're playing the same thing every night, can get a bit tired, can't it?
Yes.
But if you can bring that presentness and that fresh eyes, as if you've never played it before, as if it's the most exciting piece of music that you've ever played, then that's going to make a difference, and people will
Yeah.
notice.
Yeah. Definitely.
So I think there's huge benefits, like almost as side effects of setting time aside every day to practice and to find a meditation practice that works for you.
Yeah, I agree. It's completely like it's changed my life.
Yeah, yeah.
It really has. And it's such a simple thing, really. And into like you set aside 10, 15 minutes a day, and
Yeah,
just small
yeah.
things. Like, another thing I don't do now is, I always used to go out when I was like walk to the tram stop or whatever, is I'd always put music on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that anymore, because I feel like that kind of shuts me out from what's actually happening.
Yeah, yeah.
And now I'm like walking along and force myself, I'm like, I force myself to like notice, like, there's flowers over there, or like, you know what I mean? It's a much more interesting experience
Yeah,
than
yeah.
just banging out an album, just head down, like, "Oh, don't want to be here," all this sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So bringing mindfulness into everyday life, it sounds
Mm,
like it's really made a difference to you, which is great.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, one more time, Ruth, where can people find the stuff, all these resources, all the Manchester Mind stuff? Where do we need to go?
So manchestermind.org,
Cool.
and then it's all up there on the website. I just wondered if you wanted to finish with a little practice.
Oh, let's do that.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
do that. Absolutely.
So I think, we've been talking about it. You had your cup of tea, but this is an opportunity for everyone who's listening to kind of just tune in.
Okay.
So this might be familiar to you, it might not, and
Let's give
it's
it a
okay.
go.
And I think I just kind of want to say, a lot of people think you have to sit in a particular position. You get all these kind of thing. You don't have to. You can do this anytime. If you're on the tram, you can do this on the bus. Or just sat at home just before you put the telly on or whatever. Eyes open or closed, it's okay. You don't have to kind of look in any particular way.
Okay.
So I would invite you, first of all, to just get comfortable on that very comfy seat.
Good chairs, aren't
Yeah,
they?
they are good, aren't they?
Right, hang on. Let's get that out of the way. Right, I'm ready.
And start to bring into your awareness what's going on in the feet. So I'm not going to ask you to verbalize, just notice sensations down in the feet. So maybe the feet are in contact with the floor. You can have a sense of being connected with the earth and the ground. You might notice the sensations of the shoe around your feet. Maybe warmth going on down there. Paying attention to whatever you notice. And there's no right way. There's no special thing to pay attention to. Simply what sensations are down in the feet. Can be a nice way to ground yourself into the here and now. And then you can move your attention to start to notice sensations underneath the thighs and the bum where the body's resting on that seat. So you might notice sensations of contact and pressure and touch. Maybe it feels nice and soft like our seat, or maybe someone's sitting on something harder. Simply noticing those sensations underneath the legs and the bum. And then you can pay attention to sensations in the fingers and the hands. Maybe they're resting on the lap, on the belly. Maybe you're holding hands. You might notice warmth or coolness. Maybe a sensation of comfort if your hands are holding each other. And the mind might be really busy. Maybe it's judging the experience. Maybe you're thinking about something else, and that's okay. When you notice that's happened, just coming back into the body, noticing the hands. Can be a good way to check into what's going on physically. So maybe you might also notice other sensations in the body. Maybe the sensation of the chair against the back. Maybe there's some energy going on, or some aches or pains, or just a sense of calm. Not judging anything that you notice, just noticing it as it is. And then if you like, and if it's okay for you, you might start to notice there's some movement in the body, and that's the movement of the breath. And some people like to focus on the breath, but it's not for everyone. So doing if it feels right for you, beginning to notice there's some movements and sensations that accompany the breath. So you don't need to change the breath. We're not doing anything deep belly breathing here, simply noticing maybe the chest is rising and falling. Maybe you might notice the belly slightly expanding, or maybe there's movement through the nose and down the throat. And you can use the breath as a simple anchor because it's with you all the time, something to place the attention onto and bring it back to. And of course, the mind's going to wander, going to think, going to plan, going to judge. That's okay. Just bringing it back as soon as you notice. That's mindfulness. It's the noticing that the mind has wandered. So finishing the practice by coming back to the feel of the body on the seat and the feet on the floor. And you might like to make an intention to bring this kind of attention into the next thing that you do today.
Ah,
How was that?
delightful.
Very short.
Very short.
Not so long at all.
Only, a few minutes maybe?
I didn't check my watch, but yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's all we need. Give ourselves a little bit of space, notice what's going on, maybe focus on the body, on the breath, ready for the next thing.
Yeah. So simple, isn't it? And yet so effective.
And yet not always as easy. That's the
That's
thing.
it,
Simple,
isn't it?
but not easy
Yeah,
necessarily.
it's getting yourself to do it, isn't
Yeah,
it?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I, you say it's changed your life. It's certainly changed my life. Brought me a lot of joy, brought me a lot of resilience. And, I'm incredibly lucky to be able to kind of share these teachings with people in my work at Manchester Mind. So
It's great. Thank you very much for coming on today, Ruth.
Thanks for asking me.
It's been a pleasure.
I've really enjoyed it as well. I was so nervous, but it was fine.
It's fine. It's fine. I do have one more question.
Okay.
And I forgot to prep you about it before.
Okay.
But it's nothing too crazy.
All right.
I ask everyone this question.
Okay.
So I'll do an example first.
Okay.
And then just to show you what to do. So I normally ask everyone, if you could sum this podcast up in 3 words, what would it be? And I mean this podcast that we've just done. That we've just done. So I'll go delightfully mindful stuff. That's my 3.
Oh, they link. Do I have to link?
Well, you don't
them?
have to. They could just,
I do this to people at the end of a session, but I don't don't often get put on the spot myself.
The roles have been
absolutely.
reversed.
I would say flowing,
Nice,
relaxing, and I can't think of a third one. Enjoyable.
Flowing, relaxing, enjoyable.
Yeah.
Lovely. You smashed it.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you once again for coming on.
My pleasure.
For the people at home, I hope you got something out of this. If you want to check out the resources, please head over to Manchester Mind or any of the Mind websites. There's lots of helpful resources on there. Thank you once again to Neota. Go and check out their music. Their live session will be coming out tomorrow when this is aired. And so subscribe. Wow, that was just completely went. We'll edit this bit out. I'll never know. So remember to subscribe. George. Remember to subscribe to us on YouTube. We are putting out different podcasts every week. This is the last episode of our mental health week. I hope that you found all the resources and the people that we talked to. I hope you found it helpful, and maybe it will improve your life in some small way. So check us out next week. I can't remember what episode it will be, but I'm sure it'll be wonderful. And we'll see you all very soon. Goodbye for now.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast to catch up on new episodes every week. Also, check us out on our Facebook and Instagram at RecRooms, where you can find out about our other exciting music series. We also have this and all our other episodes of the podcast up on our RecRooms YouTube channel for your viewing pleasure. See you next time.